All right. Olivia Moultrie with the TWAPs. Oh, knocked my computer off with it. Lovely start to this podcast. Olivia Moultrie. I like to call her a Tar Heel at heart because she did commit to the good old heels. But Olivia Moultrie, Nike athlete, the youngest professional soccer player in the NWSL, a Portland Thorn. Welcome to Two Washups, One Pro. We like to call ourselves the TWAPs. So welcome to the TWAP Show. Maybe that should be our podcast name, but welcome to the TWAP Show. We cannot thank you enough for taking a little bit of time with us. First off, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me. The nickname is very creative. I think you guys should go by that. I like it. But yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to talk to you. So.
Yes, so excited, so excited.
So let's get into this.
Let's do it.
Joe, you want to give us some background on Olivia and just open it up?
Yes. So Olivia Moultrie, let me just tell you about the first time I saw Olivia Moultrie. I was a fifth year at the good old University of North Carolina, and Liv came to an ID camp. And when I got there, Anson said, listen, Joe, this kid, I've never seen a kid like her before. Listen, I'm a soccer junkie. I'm a coach now, but he was like, you've got to work the ID camp so you can see this kid. He was like, her brain is well beyond her years. Her technical ability is well beyond her years, like hyping you up. And I was like, yeah. Like, okay, cool. Liv, I get to the session and I go, good Lord, he was 100% right. And I remember watching and I was like, oh, good Lord, we've got something special on our hands. And I think, did we go to Spanky's after? Did we go to, I don't know if you even remember, but I think we went to Spanky's.
Joe
we
remembers.
Went to Spanky's. Oh, I remember. I'm like, because I'm like this kid.
The reason I remember is because my dad had to try a sweet potato fry with cream cheese and pepper relish. And let me just tell you, that is not something that would ever touch his mouth unless Anson asked him to try it. And that's why I will always remember that restaurant.
And did he not love it? Oh, it was delicious.
That's an interesting combination.
It was so freaking good. The Spanky's, that's the way
it was good. I will give it that.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So you then decide, we'll give a little bit of a background. Well, I'm sure I know we'll go into it, but you decide, like I said, still Tar Heel at heart, but you commit and then you later on sign with Nike and go to Portland. So that's a little bit of very glossy, not specific background, but we're going to get into the specific background. So good Tina, go ahead and just ask. Go ahead and ask the first question.
Yeah. So it's interesting, Liv, because there's not a lot of girls like you on the women's side, obviously, that have decided at a very, very young age that this was their dream. They were going to pursue it professionally and kind of go the non-traditional route. So we oftentimes ask some of our guests of like, you know, when did you fall in love with the game and how are you introduced to it? So I want to know that. I want to know when you were first introduced to soccer and that moment where you were like, oh my God, I love doing this. But even more so, at what point in your still at 17, a very young career, did you come home and talk to your parents and you're like, I want to get going on this. I'm good with education. I'm still doing my education, but this is going to be the priority in my life. So kind of talk us through first, like finding it as a love and then kind of that moment that you were like, I'm going to go for this and I'm going to do it like nobody ever has.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, my mom played college soccer. So I think that's kind of just what made me want to try out soccer. And so I went and did it. And at the time I had tried basketball like right before. So I was like kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And this is literally like at 3, I had already touched a soccer ball, but like at 4 or 5, I was like, okay, like I want to play soccer. So that was decided at that point. And then by 7, I had like determined like, okay, I love it. And I don't want to do anything else. And I want to be the best player in the world. Like that was the first time I said it, was 7 years old. So from then on, it was just like, what are the steps that we're taking to be in the most competitive, the most challenging environment possible? And so at 11, that's when I went to the ID camp and committed to Carolina. and then went overseas and saw some clubs. And after they had me out and brought me out there and seeing what was going on over there, like, you know, young players being in professional environments, I knew like that was the next step. And so that's when I decided to forego college and, you know, go sign with Nike and be with Portland. And it's definitely been the best decision I could have possibly made. So that's kind of a little bit of how we got there.
Sorry, I just need to take one step back. At 7. Okay. Literally, yeah. I don't know if 7-year-old Tina like even knew certain like names of states. I mean, maybe, but like I think I was just like doing my own. I mean, that's incredible. And I love that you were so adamant at such a young age. I'm just curious, and I'm adding this, Joe. I'm going on a little bit of my tangent here. Did you have an idol at that point in time? Was there someone that you really like, a soul player, maybe a team that you really looked up to?
I mean, at that point, I wasn't as into, to be totally honest, as watching the women's game as probably like, obviously I am now when I went to train with Portland, like watching the NWSL and things like that. And so my thing was like Barcelona, Messi, watching the men, the highest level in the entire world. And then like, obviously I'd watch the national team, and watching them win World Cups was like very exciting for me. But it's not till I really like started visiting professional clubs and got to Portland that like I realized how important it is for me to study the women's game, because obviously the men and the women's game is different. And for me to understand what I needed to do within the game was important for me to watch more women's games. I mean, obviously I still watch both, but to be more invested in that as well.
I just love it at that age you were able to even envision that. Because I think, I mean, we're a little bit older than you, probably like what, Joe, 8 years? Oh, Lord. Yeah. So Washups, I just, I know. But I'm just saying she's kind of the first of her kind. So it's interesting because I feel like you probably don't see it now, and I'm sure you'll recognize it later in your career, but I'm sure there's going to be other 8, 9, 10-year-olds who are like, well, Olivia Moultrie did it. Why can't mom, I want to pursue it at this level at this age. And it's like, I think any player now would be like, I wish I had been more serious about it younger versus.
Yeah. So I also kind of have a question with that. So your other fellow Portland Thorn, who also was committed to North Carolina and then decided to go play professionally instead. Did you have talks with Lindsay about kind of how she navigated that water?
I definitely, once I got there, after I had decided to sign with Nike and everything, once I got there, that was like kind of a way for me to connect with someone right away, because it was just the biggest similarity I had between anybody there. And so, just being able to talk to her and help me kind of, I mean, I already knew this was the right decision, but to have somebody who is now one of the best players in the world, you know, telling me like, you know, when you know it's the right decision, you know, and like being in this environment is better than anything else or anywhere else you could be. So definitely being able to talk to her and just relate to her on that level was really cool for me.
Yeah. So I'm very interested in this answer. Talk to us about the pressure that has come with all the attention at such an early age that your game has gotten, and how were you able to, once again, at an early age, not get complacent and continue to grow your skill? Because I remember you kind of have been on the age of social media, of where I remember when I first saw you and then I checked you out on social media and you already had like so many views on like a lot of your stuff that you put up. Talk about that pressure at a young age and then just continuing to grind. Is it that inner drive? Go into a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to be totally honest, when people talk about like, oh, all these eyes watching you when you made these decisions, like for me, I didn't feel any pressure, because this is what I love to do. And so this is just me chasing my goal. And so I just don't feel any pressure in doing what I love. And the fact that I happen to be the first girl to make a lot of these decisions, you know, that's amazing. But it would have been the same if it had been more of a common thing before. It was me just chasing my goals and finding the most competitive environments. And so it didn't really feel like this whole groundbreaking thing for me. It was just, how can I be challenged every single day? And then with the social media stuff, like that was never a part of my plan. Like when I was 11 and already had like, I don't know, like 10,000 followers. I was like, how did it even get here? Like, I don't even look at Instagram ever, you know? So for me, that was like cool, but I hardly even look at it. Like my dad controlled it for like most of all those, you know, 10 to 14. But yeah, so I don't really feel much pressure because it's just what I love to do. And it's just me chasing my goals. So
I love that. That's
so awesome.
I really think that speaks to one, you're just speaking with you now, you can see how mature you are, and to be able to, at a young age, put those blinders on and literally just it shows one how much you love the sport. You don't care about all the outside things. You literally love to play soccer. And I just kind of got
that.
And I just kind of got chills kind of talking about that, because like that's how I always felt. It was, granted, you've surpassed me 100% completely as a player, but just that, to speak to somebody who loves the game so much and is able to just get out there and wants to grind every single day, that just makes me really, really happy to hear, to be honest.
I mean, and just talking about what you were saying there, like when I saw you play for the first time, when I went to that ID camp, my first thing was just, it took me 5 seconds to just be like, I like her. And she's a player, and I can tell what a competitor she is. And like, I could just tell right away that you were different than everybody else on the field. So that was something I looked at and I was like, that's how I want to look when I'm on the field. So honestly, you were very inspiring at this point. So
no, you actually just made me tear up.
Don't let our head get too big. I'm just kidding.
But that's kind of going off a tangent. One, that's like, you did make me tear up, because that's been my, I don't know why I'm crying, but that's what I want people to see me as. So I've also lost my voice from camp. I don't mean to get emotional, but if I could leave anything when I left the sport, it would be to inspire somebody. And to hear that from you, thank you. That really means a lot.
Definitely did. No, of course.
Thank you. JoJo. All right.
Let me pull myself together.
Jo will pull herself together while I get to the next question.
Okay, go ahead. Right. Wait, can I just say thank you, Liv?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, go ahead, Tina.
So obviously you talked about it before, but you said, okay, you went to the UNC ID camp, and then you talked about kind of going overseas and competing at a really young age with some of the women's clubs out there at the top level. Talk a little bit about, I'm curious, you said that you at 7, right, you wanted to be a professional. You kind of asked your dad, okay, what do we need to do to get me to my goal? And it's interesting, right? Because I feel like the natural response would be like, okay, Liv, like you need to compete for a good club. You need to like play at the top camps. You need to go to UNC, and then you need to play in the NWSL. And obviously that's not how it's gone. So I'm curious, like, did you get the same way you got inspiration, you talked about Messi, was there any inspiration in seeing how, as you can see right now with the men's national team, there's a lot of advantages that we're seeing with young men going to Europe really young, or just generally younger players going to like professional level training from like 10, 11, 12, and that being a greater benefit for them at 20, 21. Like I think my dad, even the other day when I was watching on Sunday, the game, the US Mexico game, like I had no idea we had 10 players in Germany. And I'm like, this is what we need to do. We have to have them training at that type of level. Was that inspiring to you to impact a little bit of your decision to want to go professional? Was really getting into that training environment as quickly and early as possible?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you were mentioning, normal thought process would be good club, go to a great college, compete there, do well, go pro. And like that kind of was our plan to start. Committing to Carolina at 11 just happened to be great. I can commit to this amazing school now and then like prepare myself to be ready for that. Like that was, kind of what we were thinking. When I went to Europe, that's when I really noticed young players training with pros, because I didn't see it as much here yet. But I mean, going to Bayern Munich and Lyon and PSG and Barcelona, like that was when I was like, oh, they have, obviously the men, 15-year-olds training with the pros already, and then seeing women like 17-year-olds starting in Champions League for Lyon and things like that. I was just like, wow, like I want to do that. That was just when I knew, because at that point I would have had like 6 more years of youth soccer and then 4 more years of college. So seeing women doing it now just made me know like I have to do this a faster way. And obviously at the time, this is kind of when Pulisic was like also going through. He was in Germany and then kind of just started to grow in the global soccer world. So obviously seeing an American, that was cool as well.
Yeah, I actually, I'm Cypriot, from a small country in Cyprus, and I played Champions League when I was 16 over there.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible experience, just like playing against other women from Sweden and all these other countries. And there's some of them are, I mean, we had girls training with us that were 13, 14, weren't necessarily playing yet, but just like in that training environment. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had done this earlier.
That's the way to grow for sure, is just to be immersed in it as early as possible.
It's funny you mentioned Pulisic, because that's like the first person I thought of when we were talking about how to ask that.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's been, I mean, this week alone, the guy's literally won a Champions League, and then is it the Nations League?
When I was watching the Champions League final, I was like, he should be starting. Like, honestly, he should be on the field right now. And obviously they were great. I mean, I was heartbroken that Man City lost, but it was a fun game to watch. So
I know it's a perfect game. I don't want to get sidetracked and talk soccer with you, because I could definitely do that on a full other podcast. But I was happy for Pulisic, but then kind of sad for Man City. But we'll pause there for another podcast where we can go in depth talking X's and O's.
We'll do X and O's with Liv.
Yes,
we'll get that in.
Do it. Yeah, we'll do a little segment X and O's with Liv. Okay, so obviously you have traveled literally the entire world at such a young age, devoted your life to a sport. Chat a little bit about how at that age, most of your friends and people your age were in school, just hanging out with friends, going to the movies. Has it been difficult to kind of maintain that kid's social life and being able to engage with kids your own age, but still you're competing at the literally highest level there is? Talk about that weird kind of like, I don't know, like, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me personally, like being in school and being around kids my own age, things like that, I was never really that person who like wanted to have a huge friend group and who would go hang out on the side of that anyways, because my life consisted of train before school, go to school, go to training after school. Because at that point we were driving, all the way to Orange County to train with Blues. And so there wasn't really time for me to have play dates or hang out with friends at that point anyways. And I've just been never into like, oh, let's go to a movie or I can train. Like, I want to go train. I want to go be on the field and I want to go play. So it wasn't really that hard of an adjustment for me, because also I've always played with older people. So I've been really used to being the youngest person on the field, being the youngest person in the room, in the area. And so going from school to training, instead of now being a pro and not having to go to school, but, doing that online on my own, and going to training in the morning, didn't feel like that big of an adjustment for me, because it's basically just flipped around. Like, I never had to eliminate that part of my life, as in like hanging out with friends. I never had to get rid of it, because it just wasn't really a big thing for me to begin with. So,
yeah. So talk about, so your family had a field built in the backyard. Is that correct? Now,
yes.
That was my dream as a child. I've tried to convince my family that it didn't work.
Hey, Joe, you have some space.
What'd you say?
Come on, Wendy.
I know. Listen,
go back there.
We live on a hill. It was just completely.
You could do some nice shooting back there. Come on.
I know. What? Just talk about your development growing up with, having the convenience. How long was, I'm getting a little scatterbrained, but how long was that drive to Blues? Was it long with LA traffic?
Yeah. Yes. Like, I would leave, most of the time I'd have to leave like an hour to 30 minutes early from school just to make it on time, because I train with my team and then I train with the older team. So you're there for like 3 hours, hour and a half with your team, hour and a half with the older team. And then it's like an hour and a half to 2 hour drive there. And then it's like an hour and a half on the way home too. Yeah. So we were just trying to I'd try to stay as long as possible. I'd hang around everywhere. Like sometimes when I was like 10 or 11, I'd train with like the 19s at the end, because I'm like, I don't want to leave yet. I have this long drive back home,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a pretty
then you're like, well, I'm driving all this. Should I just put a field in the backyard? Is that kind of what went through y'all's minds?
I think part of it was just that we used to live near this park that we would go to all the time. And when we moved, it was just like, we need to have access to a place where we can just be on a field all the time. So when we moved, it was kind of like it wasn't the same as in their parks everywhere and things like that. So we were just like, we have to find a place that has enough space for Liv to just be able to be out on the field basically whenever she wants. So that was kind of the thought process. And as soon as we moved from our house in Valencia to San Canyon, that's when we kind of built our first little Moultrie field. And we built it like around the tree because, you're not allowed to cut those down in California, but we whole setup and our field in Oregon even now. But the thought process was just how can she have access whenever she needs 24/7? Because if I could be on the field literally every minute of the day, I would. And that's basically what we tried to create. So
I love that. That is like baby Joe, like growing up, baby Joe's dream.
I feel like that's I'm glad to hear you say that, because I feel like if I didn't know you and I wasn't a former player, I probably would assume it hasn't been as enjoyable for you, just because of like all of the attention and a lot of conversation around you. And it's refreshing for me to hear that it really just, all of this stems from somebody who has just truly fallen in love with the game. Because I feel like that is so critical. And Joe, I think you'd probably echo this. Like, even though we don't play anymore, I mean, I still love the game dearly, but I feel like you have to have that kind of passion to put in the time that we've all put in. And so I'm happy to hear that you are at that place right now. Cause I mean, you've been doing this at a level that some girls at this point are like retiring, right? They've played 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, like when
professionally.
people talk about like she's gonna get burnt out, or like,
Right.
I'm like, how can I get sick of something that I just like I love to do it?
Right.
How do you get sick of something that you love to do? So that's kind of
people just don't like to hear that as an answer, right? Because they want to feel like
I know they're like, are you sure you're not burnt out? Are you sure you're not sick? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
That literally, once again, like, I don't know why I'm so freaking emotional on this podcast, because I think I just, I know I just love soccer so much. I literally physically just cannot play anymore. So I coach, and I literally, like, my face is just burnt because I'm on the field all the time, but I'm coaching on the field. Tina tries to text me. I'm on the field from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. I just love soccer. And to hear you say, and I love what Tina said, is like, people want to say that like, oh, she's going to get, but you just love soccer. And I want everyone to know that is an okay thing to love. Like, yeah. You're not out doing crazy. You just love the game. You love the beauty of the game. I could go on a whole, tangent on how much,
but it just makes the sacrifice easy, right? Like you said, it's like you don't envy.
It doesn't even feel like a sacrifice,
Right?
Exactly.
Totally get it.
Exactly. That just makes me so happy. I'm just
let's get into the big news. So let me just paint the picture for everybody who maybe isn't aware of your situation. So as we're talking this whole podcast, we're talking about how your journey is unconventional in the aspect of like, you didn't do the college to pro route. Most people probably don't even recognize the fact that probably until today, literally, if you were not 18 years old, you were not eligible to play in a NWSL game, at least one that counted in the league. So for a very long time, you have more or less been training at that level, but have not been awarded the opportunity to compete with everyone else for playing time, starting spot, etc. Again, super interesting, right? Because my initial thought is like, well, it's so common on the men's side, right? Like, it's like not even a question. It's like, it's almost encouraged. Like, if your son is good at 12, then you need to send him somewhere, and most likely to Europe if you want him to develop in the way. So kind of walk us through, I know it's been so long, but because part of me is like, okay, you're 12, you're 13, there's clubs saying like, come play, I don't know if you had that expectation of playing right away, but they're encouraging you to come train with them in Europe at the top clubs. Mm-hmm. Was there a point in this journey where, I mean, you've been fighting for your right to play for 5 years, essentially. what has kept you resilient in that fight to now be obviously today being awarded, getting Portland to grab your rights. Now you're actually eligible to play in the league at 17. What has kept you resilient in that path? Because I feel like I want you to walk through the process and how it's been over time. But I feel like to start, I want to really understand like kind of getting to that decision, but then being persistent in it, right? Because part of me is like, I probably, to be honest, I probably would hit like 15 and be like, you know what, Dad, like I'm just going to go to UNC. This is like, I'll train, I'll do this, but this is like exhausting.
I actually am 15.
Yes, she's 15.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Well,
15, youngest ever.
So yeah, but I totally get what you're saying.
You speak
I
like
can
a
kind of just
17-year-old.
talk through a little bit of.
You speak like a 17-year-old. First off,
thank you.
You speak like a 25-year-old. But go ahead.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, but anyway, so I mean, I guess kind of you're just wondering what's my like thought process and feelings throughout having not been able to play for so long and now actually being able to compete in the league. So yeah, I mean, got to Portland at 13 and our initial thought process was like whatever rule or thing we needed to get done, like hopefully would be done soon. Like we came there with an intent of, it'll be done soon. So let me work my way into the team and earn my spot and prove myself to the team to the point where when I could play, I was ready to play. And so before we went to Portland, it was actually when you talked about training with clubs in Europe, we were going to move to Lyon. Like that was going to be our process because we didn't think that going to a team in America was an option. And so I was going to go to Lyon and try to just work my way to the pros as soon as possible and then just start playing because there's no age limit over there. If you're European, obviously, if I was American, I would have had to move there for non-soccer reasons because of the FIFA rules. But anyways, when we went to Portland, like my first thought was just, okay, I have to prove myself to the team. I have to earn my spot. That was the first thing I could do. I couldn't worry about if I was eligible to play right at that moment because I wasn't even ready to just step right in at 13 and play. I had to see what the level was like and acclimate and just know what I had to do. And so obviously COVID hitting in 2020 was a big setback in terms of getting whatever needed to be done in terms of rules with the league for me to be able to play. And so obviously that was a little bit frustrating to have to just continue to grind it out through quarantine. And then with the Challenge Cup, having to watch my teammates, go play. And I was like, darn, like, I really wish I could be there. I wish I could be playing. And now, like, with this, I'm just happy that I'm going to be able to play now. Like, it was just this ongoing, like, it's going to happen soon. It's going to happen soon, but I have to keep myself ready. I couldn't worry about any logistical or things that I couldn't control because if I wasn't ready to play when I was eligible to play, what was the point of me worrying about all these other things? I just needed to continue to prepare myself every practice, every training, every preseason till now I am able to play. And that's the same thing till I actually sign my name on that dotted line. Like I just have to prepare myself to be on the field. So that's kind of just been my thought process. And that's just helped me stay right in line with my goals and stay on the straight and narrow path.
First of all, I need to take a step back because I'm in utter shock. Like I think I convinced myself you were older than you are because I like can't believe your journey in a sense. And so it's honest. I don't know, Joe. I'm like almost a little bit because there's nobody like you. Like you're such a unicorn in the sense that you're at such a high level at such a young age. I mean, Joe, you can speak to this. You were obviously very much recruited and had a lot of attention brought to you at a younger age, but to see her level and quality at 15 is, I'm sure your family is so proud of you, but I feel like me and Joe talk about this a lot. I think imagery for young girls is everything. And like, I am very, I'm proud in a sense that we have a woman in front of us who's willing to kind of fight for her right. And I guarantee you going through this, no matter what heartache it's brought, there's going to be another Olivia and it's going to be almost a norm. at some point here coming forward. And I think you should really be encouraged by that. Beyond anything you do in your career, I think that alone is so impactful. And it's the only way we progress this sport and we progress this league is by bringing in bigger talent and showing young women that they have the opportunity to do what the men do. So kudos to you, even though I called you 17. I think I just want you to know that I think it's absolutely incredible that you are able to really be where you're at. And it, kudos to you for getting there.
Yes. Thank you.
And then I'm also going to just hype that up too, is not only are you breaking the mold and doing all these things, but you're doing them in a way, one, you're 15, but in a way that is so mature, so classy. The way you carry yourself, the way you act, the way you speak is something that I think myself as an older person, like, can learn from. You conduct yourself in such an unbelievable manner that you seem like you're way older than you are, but we got to realize that you are very young. And that one, I think, kudos to your parents as well, because, they're also guiding you in this journey. Is he right? Can you tell him kudos to dad? Kudos to dad and mom.
He went.
We gave him a fist bump.
Totally agree.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
I mean, it's true.
I said he's not in the background, but I totally agree with what you're saying. Yeah. A big part of just my ability to speak in public and answer questions is definitely because of them.
Exactly. And I think that just speaks not only to your soccer ability, but just to who you are as a human being. And I think when it all gets down to it, we just want to be good human beings. And you are a good human being who happens to be a stud of a soccer player.
Joe, Tina at 15, if I was her, I had gotten asked
Tina at 15 was in Long Island.
I was in Long Island.
Probably eating New York pizza, doing some New York stuff.
I'm just laughing here because I'm literally like, I think I literally I have to convince myself you're older because I just can't fathom. I think about my younger self and I'm like, okay, so I'm 10 years older than you. Good to know. And I literally, I'm a little bit lost for words on that. You're kudos to dad also and mom for raising a good one.
Yeah.
I guess it proves that you don't need to be in class. I mean, you could literally do online class and be as intelligent and have such a presence.
Exactly. Thank you. That's what I like to try to say to my mom, but she.
No, you gotta go to school, but you could do it in a non-traditional way.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think it's just going to be called the Liv Moultrie way. It's just going to be called the Liv Moultrie way. Just do it the Liv way. I love it. So, okay, I have a little question here then. Was it then, I'm sure there were all of the Nike, Adidas, we got New Balance, we got all of these different brands knocking, I'm sure, pounding at your door in California. What made you want to go with Nike?
I mean, we've always been a Nike family. I don't think my wardrobe has consisted of anything other than Nike since I was literally 3. Okay. So that made it a little bit of an easier decision, but yeah, loved Nike for as long as I can remember. And it just was great that it happened to work out, that we felt that was the best, offer and decision. And so, yeah, super happy about that.
Yeah, I love that because my husband, go ahead. Tina.
No, I'm curious. We haven't, and this is something that we haven't really talked to anyone. And despite we've talked to players obviously that have contracts, but I mean, signing so young with them, and I'm sure your dad was involved, obviously, in part of discussions, but kind of talk through that process too, because I think that's quite an intimidating situation where you're like, this is an international brand, right? Everybody knows Nike anywhere you go in the world.
You were on after the Oscars. That's how big the campaign was.
Kind of talk about that process. Was that in any way a validation to you? Okay, I'm feeling good about my decision to want to go and kind of forfeit my right in college and be a professional and really pursue this?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah. We never would have taken the Nike offer if we didn't feel like it was worth the same as a full 4-year scholarship. And since it was, that also made it a little easier. Like, I'm not just giving up this money and I'm not giving it away. I am taking something else that then allows me to get closer to my goals. But obviously, like I said, I wasn't really as nervous about these things because I was kind of like, I wasn't ever feeling like, oh, what if I sign and give away my eligibility and it doesn't work out? Like, didn't even cross my mind. I was just thinking, okay, great. This is just another thing to add. I mean, obviously, Nike wasn't something like, oh, I need a Nike contract. Like, it was great that it happened, but if I still didn't have that, like, that would change nothing about how I feel or me just preparing to play in the league and getting closer to my goals. And like I said, obviously it's a plus, but it's not something that was necessary or that we needed, so super exciting and I love Nike, but yeah.
I just love that. You just love soccer. That's what the world
right.
needs to know.
I think it's
Olivia Moultrie loves soccer.
But I think it takes the pressure off because it's like, to your point, it's like you're not worried about the next Instagram post. You're not worried about the next photo shoot. It's like, as long as like, it kind of just seems like everything's an add-on to the overall vision of just like being the best soccer player that you possibly can be. And it sounds like, I think what's also really positive, and it sounds that way, is that, you've been pretty welcomed by the Portland Thorns, and despite this being major news now, right? Like that you can get on the field. I feel like you've been a part of that team in a large capacity, even though
Portland's been amazing. As soon as I step foot here, like, I've been a part of every single thing that I possibly could be. And, I went right in. Locker room with the team, everything with the team, every practice, pregame, everything. Like, I'm there all the time. And the only thing I couldn't do yet was play. And now that that's on the table, I'm just with everybody else. And yeah, they've been great. I love my teammates and I love the organization. And so I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
So how are you managing school then right now? So 15, are you in 10th?
10th grade.
So what's a day? Give me a day in Olivia Moultrie's life.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I can even give today, for example. So I wake up and we get to the facility by like 9:15 every morning. And then I'm there till around 1:30. And then when I get back, I'll grind out some school, grab lunch, do some of that. And I kind of do it whenever it's accessible. So I can do it any time of the day. There's no time limits or times I need to turn things in. So it makes it very easy for me to self-pace and do it whenever I need. And then usually I'll go back out on the field or I'll have a bike ride or something like that. And then I'll do more school and, eat dinner, hang out with my family. But it's very easy for me because all I have to do is pop on my computer and I can just start whatever subject I need right then and there. So
your family's out in Portland with you?
Yes, everybody's here.
I was actually talking to someone.
You have a little sister
I have
or little
two
brother?
Younger sisters, two younger sisters.
How old?
Okay.
13 and 9.
Yeah, so this is like a family affair. I love this. Family affair.
Are they soccer?
The 13-year-old
like soccer?
Basketball player, like my dad was, but the 9-year-old loves soccer just like I do. So we actually train together a lot.
It's funny, Joe.
That's
and I don't
awesome.
know. I don't know if you would agree to this, but I was talking to a player actually in the league today, and they were just talking about how there's such a benefit for players who have family from wherever, like in the town in which they play or close in driving capacity. Especially this year, I think a lot of girls are not burnt out, but I think like there was really never a break. So it's like, there's been a large chunk of time where they haven't been able to kind of step out of the environment. And I would think that that's helpful for you, is that there's blips in the day where it's like, as much as you love soccer, you can kind of like take a step back and just like enjoy your parents or enjoy your sisters or eat dinner and not have to be so engulfed by just like, okay, are we training? Are we doing school? Are we doing this? It's just like a minute to chill and kind of remove yourself in a way.
Yeah. I mean, part of what's so special about just everything that I've been able to do is just because of my family and our business and how it's allowed us to, my parents' business, and how it's just allowed us to go anywhere that we needed to for me to just continue to chase my dreams. And they've been the most supportive people in the entire world. Like my sisters are always asking, or were asking, when is Liv going to be able to play? What's going on? Like everyone is super invested in it. And it makes it that much easier for me for me to be able to just rely on them. And when I need just somebody to vent to and talk to, that they're all there for me all the time. Yeah, that's great.
Shout out to the parents. Respecting the parents. Because I can see my mom and dad, the amount of times they drove me, flew to my games, did everything. Like, just like a minute to say like thank you is so vital. Because I don't think you realize it. I mean, you're seeing it at a young age, but I will be honest, I don't think I appreciated it like you did at 15. And I feel like a lot of people need to remember that, you know? So
yeah, we definitely we need to do shout out the parents. That's for darn sure. My voice has been shot from camp. My vocal cords
Coach
from yelling at young
Coach Joe.
Coach Joe.
Yeah, she gets into
People call me Coach Joe. It's very strange. But okay, so I know you chatted and you mentioned that you watched Barcelona growing up. I have two questions. One, was it that 2010 kind of era with Xavi, Iniesta, Messi? Was that the Barcelona you were kind of referring to?
Honestly, I didn't get to watch Xavi as much as I would have liked to. I rewatched. Have you guys seen?
I wish you were older. Xavi was so good.
Have you seen that documentary?
Xavi, man.
Like, that Barcelona, the take the ball, pass the ball with Pep, and that Barcelona, like
yes.
That's when I kind of learned more about that era of that team, and obviously I started watching more Xavi highlights, and I was like, this guy was incredible. Because when I started watching, he was like towards the end of his Barcelona career, and he was about to leave and go somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, I was more of the Messi, Neymar, Suarez, more of the end of Iniesta's career, kind of that time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was curious because you do have very similar characteristics of Xavi, and Xavi was like my man growing up. I love him. But then who
definitely see why.
Thank you. So who was then your favorite player and kind of who inspired you and you were like, I want to play like this person? Who was that person for Liv Moultrie?
Yeah, so when I was really little, like obviously the whole Messi and Ronaldo thing, like I was a Messi fan. So he was obviously like, oh, I want to play like Messi. And as I've gotten more, and I still feel like that, but as I've gotten more like invested in watching every game in every league around the world, I've really been able to pinpoint players who I want to take specific things from. And Kevin De Bruyne is a big one for me. Paul Pogba does a lot of things that I love. Man City, I mean, a bunch of their players, like the way they play and how their midfield works together. Phil Foden, another one, and a young player. So like love watching him. And yeah, so that's been great for me to like more specifically look at things that I can take from their game and try to implement into mine.
So going into Coach Joe mode here, I think it's interesting that you mentioned Paul Pogba because you're tall, but you also are very long-legged, where Paul Pogba is super long-legged. So your movements and things are very, very similar, I'm sure. So I bet you can pick out really interesting things and tactics on how he uses his body and things like that that you can use and implement in your game. And then obviously the beauty of the passing of Kevin De Bruyne.
Like you're saying, like things that are newer for me is me being like not the smallest player on the field every time. Like I was always playing against bigger people. So like I was always this like little, Liv small, you know, like when I got to Portland, I was like 5'1" or 5'2". And by the end of my first year, I was like 5'5", 5'6", and now I'm like 5'7". So
exactly
going from being always the smallest to now I'm like, no, I'm on like the higher end of just the height for women's soccer. And it's definitely allowed me to access some new things in my game that I wasn't able to previously.
Oh, I feel like that. Joe, it's also,
I just got into Coach Joe mode.
I also feel like that's a good point that I didn't think about is like, think about all the girls that we played at like 12, right? That would like, they had grown so much earlier and I felt like, oh my gosh, this kid's so much better than me. And then like in 3 years, I'm like 2 inches taller than them, like able to do more things because it took me longer to grow in my body. It's like interesting that you're still in that. It's like kind of crazy to think that you're still in that phase where you're also learning how your body's kind of developing.
But I think the most important thing too is that you're learning your new body, I guess, at the highest level. So
right. It's like such an advantage.
It's not like you have to readjust to the speed. You're literally growing physically and mentally and literally everywhere in your body at the highest level. So it's just an easy transition.
Yeah, I don't
easy.
have to figure out how to use this body in youth soccer. I get to figure it out right now. I don't have to go youth soccer to college to pro. I get to figure it out right with the pros right now. So yeah.
Yep, you said that way more clear than I did. Would you like to host the podcast?
I totally got your point, and it's exactly right. So
Joe, she's literally saying things better than us. And again, 15, 25. 25.
I can't speak.
Gotta pull it together here.
Like, oh, Joe, I know exactly what you're saying. What you're saying is this. And I'm like, yes, I word vomited. And so Liv just cleared that up for me. So that is exactly what I was trying to say. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to add something. Liv,
okay.
What is something that people don't know about you outside of soccer? I feel like there's a lot about you, about obviously soccer and your journey, but like, what's something that like you enjoy, or a guilty pleasure, or anything that like someone who doesn't know you personally would never know about you, that you're comfortable sharing, of course?
Yeah. So no, yeah, of course. This is something when people would ask me like any questions that started to go off the topic of soccer, I was like, uh-oh, like, what do I answer with? Yeah. And now something that's become like very important to me off the field is like just my nutrition, but not just that. It's that I love to cook, and I don't like eating boring things. I don't like just chicken and rice and vegetables. Like, I like to cook and make food, but that also, you know, fits my goals of nutrition off the field.
Like,
so that's like 15, a big thing.
I'm a pro. I'm a chef. I do it all. Give us what
I love that.
If we came to your house right now and we want Liv's like
what would you
top
cook us?
dollar meal, what are we getting?
Oh, I have so many. Wait, I gotta.
Okay, what's Dad's favorite? Get him
what's
in.
Dad's
what's
favorite?
Dad's favorite?
He doesn't like my food because it's too healthy for him.
All right, what's Dad's guilty pleasure then? Because I want to know.
But she's vegetarian, so I mean, I make a lot of like breakfasty things. Like, I love breakfast. That's like one of my favorite meals of the day. And it's gonna sound weird, but one of my favorite things to make is cottage cheese pancakes, and they are incredible. And I usually go the apple cinnamon route. So like, Honey Crisp apples, cinnamon, cottage cheese, oats, egg whites, blend it up. I like stevia as a little bit of sweetener, and it's delicious.
Mind blowing.
Sometimes some peanut butter on there.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna have to send us the recipe.
So we're coming over for breakfast.
Yeah, breakfast. Breakfast. So our favorite thing to do, actually, no, it's definitely both of our favorite things to do, is we like to do a little rapid fire at the end. It just is a great way to just sum up the pod. So first question, before I ask it, do you drink coffee?
No.
Good question. All right. Tea?
So do you drink tea?
Sometimes, but I haven't had a good experience.
Let's just do drink.
Yeah, we'll do drink. Yeah, our first one was your favorite coffee drink, but we're just gonna ixnay that. Your favorite drink?
Sparkling water.
Okay.
Love that. LaCroix.
I love LaCroix. LaCroix is awesome.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Great. Okay. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Competitor, sister, and I don't want to go I'm going to go with leader, because I don't want to go anywhere other than that. But yeah, that's kind of, that's my best.
I love that she's
on the spot. I love
that. It says a lot about you that you said
sister is my favorite one. That's my
everyone always starts talking about them, what is little adjectives about. You said sister. That was awesome.
That's massive.
That. Yeah.
That's massive. Okay. Your favorite team that you've played?
You
can go into youth national team. Yeah, against. You can go into whatever you've played against.
Somebody I've always wanted to play against is England, and I got to experience that in the beginning of 2020, right before COVID hit. We scrimmaged the U17 England national team, so I'll go with them. Yeah, that was
awesome.
Okay, add on, because it's who are you most excited to play in the NWSL?
That's a good one.
Because you're Portland. A lot of people say Portland, to be honest with you, because of the environment. But because you're on Portland, I'm curious to see what team you're excited.
I can't wait to play the Reign. I've experienced so many of that rivalry being in the stadium, and
it's getting chippy these days too. Rivalry. It's getting chippy.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fans
love
are getting
that.
chippy on that.
So it also doesn't seem like you order takeout a lot, but if you did, what would be your favorite takeout place?
Ooh. Some place that does really good takeout food, and my mom loves this place too, is California Pizza Kitchen. And it's one of
Yes.
those places where the food doesn't get worse when you order it. It like stays just as good as if you were there.
I've heard that
So
before.
that's a good
Awesome.
go-to.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, favorite television show you've recently binged?
I just finished the Tottenham documentary on Amazon Prime,
Oh.
and I know that's going back into the like soccer
Quality
world, but that's the last thing I
television.
watched.
That's brilliant.
It was amazing. So.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Are you ready for the Euros? You getting into that? Do you watch
Oh
a
my
lot
gosh,
of
I'm
soccer?
so excited. When they got pushed back, I was like, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
But
So.
then
That'll
we've
be
got
fun.
we've got Bing Bam Boom. Like we're going
Copa America's on. We have the women's like the
yeah,
Olympics.
I know we got
It's gonna be a
that,
great
and then
summer.
the Olympics, and yeah, the Euros, and
World
then
Cup
the World
coming.
Cup is only like a
Yeah.
year away instead
And
of 2 years
live
away.
on the Portland Thorns.
I know.
Watch.
Okay, so you don't. This is like who is your current? We kind of like to preface this. Who's your current favorite teammate that you maybe just like hit it off with right now?
Morgan Weaver. As soon as she got here to the Thorns, we've been like best friends since the moment
That's
she
awesome.
got
I
here.
love that.
So.
I love that. I love that. Well, I have to admit, whenever you sign, I am getting your jersey immediately. Just letting
So
you know.
it's gonna be your number one fan. I
You don't
can
even
assure
have to
will
get it.
be-
I'll send one to you. I'll get it for you. That'd be freaking love to do that.
Please.
Joe
Seriously,
will wear it. We will wear it on the pod.
listen.
Yeah.
Easy.
I have never worn any other player's jersey other than myself. You will be the first person that I will wear, and I will wear I will wear on the field. I will wear everywhere because that is how much I respect you, love you. I cannot thank you enough for getting on with us. One, you're the first person on this podcast to make me cry. So congrats
That's
on
a
that.
fact.
That's a fact. That's a true fact. That's a true fact. I just thank you so much for hopping on. It means the world. We're so thankful to be able to help
honestly,
you.
we can't wait to get you
your
back.
story.
We want to hear about your experience and
This is one of the
playing.
easiest things I've ever done, and I loved getting to talk to both of you, and I so lucky to be on it. Thank you guys for having me. It was great.
Oh my God. Thank you. It was great.
Thank you so much.